The Florida Gators defense is going to have some young players break out in 2025.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Tuesday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. And I will just say this real quick. I don't know why, but when I was just like, oh, Florida's going to have some young players break out, I think the way that I said it just reminded me of like old Madden when you would blitz and there you go, it's a jailbreak. I don't know why it was, but that just reminded me of the commentators yelling that. And I felt like you needed to know that as well, because why not? But the Florida Gators defense, I will say this. I don't know if we're going to do an offensive breakout list. Defense just has dudes that I was looking the other day, and I'm like, well, there's a lot of guys that have the potential breakout, right? Which isn't surprising. And also, you can be pessimistic about that. That's fine. Because the flip side of Florida has a lot of guys ready to break out is that Florida has a lot of guys that haven't broken out yet. So that's the flip side. However, like I've said, with this roster, I'm bullish on them. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm bullish on this roster. I think they've built a fantastic roster here, a college football playoff roster. And that's why I've said, even if you do have, because everybody wants to talk about the Lagway injuries, even if you do have that, you shouldn't lose more than 4 games this year. With injuries, you shouldn't lose more than 4 games. This is a great roster. The first player that I do think is, I don't want to say the most likely breakout candidate, but I do think that he's got probably the highest ceiling and plays a premium position is Cormani McClain in 2025. Billy Napier mentioned during the fall camp introductory press conference that, Cormani's got to improve his tackling, his communication on the back end, and knowing the playbook is an important part. And I've been very open about what I thought about Cormani McClain this entire time, right? Going back to the Colorado days, I thought about it. And I spoke about how, well, I didn't think that his film was awesome at Colorado. And part of that was, not knowing playbooks, which, again, he was a true freshman. I don't expect you to know everything there. So I didn't think his Colorado film was great. Last year, his film had a couple big splash plays, the pick six, the deflection in the end zone in that same game that was way more impressive than the pick six, if we're being honest, as far as just a defensive playmaking ability. But when there weren't those big splash plays, there were sometimes he kind of just looked lost in coverage. And so knowing the playbook was the thing that he always needed to know. However, that's stuff that comes with experience, right? Communicating comes with experience. It does. I know that maybe some people are just quieter than usual, sure. But I also think that knowing the playbook helps you be comfortable and confident enough to know, hey, I've got to communicate what I'm doing here so that they know. And now that I know my role definitively, that I'm not worried about second guessing or anything like that. Some guys are also just bad communicators, just going to be honest with you. And maybe that's part of it. But I do think that, Cormani is in position to really break out now. He's entering year 3 in college, year 2 in the system, which he hasn't done. He hasn't had a second year in a system because he had Colorado his first year, Florida last year. This is his first time in college, so he's going to come back and have a second year learning the defense, learning the system, and being able to function there. And by all accounts so far, again, it's early, right? It's Tuesday. Camp had the introductory press conference and players report last week, a week ago today. So it's not like we've really got anything definitive going down there, but by all reports so far, he's looked impressive, which isn't surprising, right? Again, he's the type of player where when you're just a great athlete with those ball hawking tendencies and that mentality, you're going to look pretty good, especially in these camp settings. When we're talking about, 1-on-1, 7-on-7, when we're talking about the less actual real football. Because the things that that Billy Napier mentioned with Cormani needing to improve upon, that's real 11 on 11 in-depth football. It's not the baseline of, well, can he play in coverage? Can he cover people? It's not the baseline that it's the communicating. So knowing the playbook, the nitty-gritty of improved tackling, which I'm not super concerned about. Partially because the weight room, I think, is part of that. That was the thing we talked about last year when Cormani came over was I need him to bulk up because you got to be able to defend the run in the SEC if you're a corner. You can't be passive. You've got to be able to defend the run. You've got to be able to make plays and finish tackles. And so part of that with me last year for Cormani was you got to gain that weight. You do because imagine if the roles were reversed, right? If Florida were going against a corner that were the size of Cormani when he got to Florida, and if you were a Florida Gator fan, you'd probably go, get Jaden Ball in space against that guy, because I'd like to see that guy try to tackle Jaden Ball. That's how it works on the flip side, is that we have Cormani McClain, and he needs to bulk up a little bit if he's going to be hanging and banging with running backs in space. And so he's done that. I mean, you look at him, he's got a rocked up frame now. Like he's there. Also for Cormani, he's got, I think, opportunity more than probably anybody else in terms of the ability to make play. Because I'll tell you this now. Next, we're going to talk about Myles Graham. And Myles Graham has more opportunity because he's probably stepping into a starting role, right? Cormani has, I guess we'll call it unexpected opportunity opening up because Dijon Johnson got banged up on Friday. So Cormani's going to get even more reps with the ones until DD's back. And Cormani could capitalize on that, right? Even if DD's back right now. We'll see if he's going to be full go right now or if he's going to be eased into it right now. But Cormani's got opportunity to separate. And I've been very open. I hate that the most likely quarterback or cornerback competition is between Cormani and Dijon Johnson, because I think that they're both incredible football players. I think Cormani has the tools to be an incredible football player. And I think that Dijon has the film of a really, really high quality corner. And look, picks are awesome. I get it. But if you don't hear a corner's name, if you're not talking about a corner, that's usually a pretty good sign. Think about all the corners that Florida's had in even just recent years, right? Let's say the past 6 years. Think about all those guys. How many we've talked about and how many we've talked about that have been negative. Because if you're talking about corners a lot, not usually a great sign, right? If we're talking about Jalen Kimber a lot, not usually a great sign, right? Which, by the way, Jalen Kimber played pretty damn good coverage. It was just you threw it near him and he wasn't making the play. So it didn't matter that he was covering you. It's like the opposite of a receiver where when you have a contested catch specialist and it's just like, well, doesn't matter if he's covered. He's going to make the catch. It was the opposite with Jalen Kimber while he was at Florida. It doesn't matter if he's playing good coverage. He's not going to make the stop. And I think now you've got the opportunity where we haven't talked about DD that much because he's played generally good defense, right? You look at the film again, and he's playing good defense. He's playing good coverage. He looks like he's going to be in the NFL soon. Cormani has the potential to be, I don't think he'll ever really be a top pick, right? Because there's just been so much murkiness around him. And so I think that with that, there's going to be a lot of questions, and some teams will be skeptical, even if it's not justified. But he's got the potential to be a true corner one in the NFL. He's got all the physical tools. If you're building a corner in the lab, you're building him in the lab, and it's Cormani McClain. And now he's got year 2 in the defense. He's got the opportunity to compete for starting time. Cormani is a prime breakout candidate in 2025. We're going to talk about Myles Graham, like I said, when we get back with Locked On Gators. You ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So, in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free, representing the podcast and on YouTube. And we're talking about Florida Gators defensive breakouts, right? And this isn't just candidates, right? These are guys that I think are going to break out this year. Myles Graham is who we're talking about now. And part of the reason that I'm expecting him to break out is because he's going from, well, a backup rotational role as a true freshman, stepping into a probable starting role. I do think that Florida's linebacker room is among the best in the country. I do think that Florida's linebacker room, when they're fully healthy, could have a combination of Pup Howard and Jaden Robinson as the two top guys out there. But I think the more likely actual lineup is Pup Howard or Jaden Robinson at the mic with Myles Graham at the wheel. And I will say that Myles Graham's film in 2024, there were errors and miscues on there. I don't care about those. Again, I am the type where I could say you played really well for a freshman. That doesn't mean you played really well overall, but also if the mistakes that you made are freshman mistakes, I'm not, or expected freshman mistakes, I'm not going to hurt a player too much for that. Like, I'm not going to knock a player too much for you're a true freshman and you bid on a play action. Like, that was not super well hidden because some quarterbacks aren't very good at it. And so I'm not going to fault you for that. You're inexperienced. You're supposed to be doing that. Linebacker is one of the most difficult positions to play in college football as a true freshman. Especially, like, I would argue that it's a steeper learning curve as a true freshman linebacker, specifically in the SEC. Not to do the whole like SEC thing, but to talk about the scheme and talent in there. I'd argue it's a steeper curve to be a true freshman playing linebacker in the SEC than it is to be a rookie playing linebacker in the NFL. Not that it's necessarily easier, but I think not that it's necessarily easier in the NFL, of course, but I think it's steeper to go from high school and what you see in high school as a linebacker to what you're going to see in college as a linebacker, where teams can abuse the RPO because you can get 5 yards downfield, or you can do whatever you want to do, and you can get more creative with it. And you can get more creative with the scheme, and the RPO can be more threatening. We've got walk RPOs in college. You don't really have those in the NFL. So you've got a lot more that you've got to defend, essentially. Better talent in the NFL, but the scheme is more difficult to defend as a freshman in college. And so any of the errors that Myles Graham made, I chalk up as just freshman errors, and they're not things that bother me. I don't get bothered by a kid just stepping into the SEC and figuring it out. I will say that I think that one thing Myles Graham is going to really pop out with this year, at least, is that I think that he's got, how do I put this? The versatile upside to be a freak. I think that he's got the actual, I'm trying to word it properly. I think that his ability to impact the game as a pass rusher is actually overlooked by a lot of people. Because we've seen what he could do off ball. We've seen, or some of what he could do off ball. We've seen what his high school film looks like and how he looks just like a wrecking ball. And we've seen him go out there and make some big plays. I mean, look, when I think about Myles Graham, I think, honestly, first off, when I think about what I've seen him do, I think about his ability to defend the run, because when I think about him, I constantly look back at the Ole Miss games or the Ole Miss game, where they had their defensive lineman that they would put in the Wildcat and let him run the ball, and it never got stopped until they ran it against Florida. And it got stopped. One, because up front, Florida stood up. But two, because Myles Graham was coming out. Like Myles Graham made the plays to help stop that defensive lineman carrying the football. And that hadn't been done all year. I think having that, huge. Especially now that he's got another year and more instincts and a better ability to read offenses, he's going to be even better. Physically, he's awesome. Physically, he's awesome. He's young in a complex position. And I do think that a lot of his success is going to be strictly mental. Again, you watch the physical ability, the size, all of that. He's got it. I know that there are some people that maybe when he was coming out of high school, they were a little skeptical of the size of the height. I'll be honest, I don't care that much about height on a linebacker. If you can go out there and make plays, you can go out there and make plays, and that's what matters to me. So I will say that, but I don't anticipate the mental game, which again, like I've said, in my opinion, a lot of his success is going to be based on his mental game. I don't anticipate that being an issue. I really don't. Just because he's got natural instincts at linebacker. It's just about teaching him how to do everything else that you need him to do and opening up the playbook for him. Because I do think that the pass rushing potential, again, is sick. He has an absolutely ridiculous first step. Like he starts at top speed, comes flying downhill. He can crush. I'm not saying to blitz him 30 times a game. Not at all what I'm saying. But I am saying that when you blitz him, I think he's going to be pretty good off ball. When you blitz him from an off ball spot, I think he's going to be pretty effective. I do. We saw it a little bit last year. I do think this year we can see it open up a little bit more. But I think that Myles Graham has the potential to, first off, we know he's a good run defender already. He was very good against the run last year, which I will also say, not common for a freshman. It's not. It's reading not just where the running back is, but where he's going to go and getting there, and then physically making the play. And so the mental part of it was there against the run. It is. So we know that he's a good run defender already. Blitzing, I think he would be good already if they let him do it. Basically, he blitzed like 15 times last year. He didn't do it often. I think that you let him do it more often, and he's going to make more of an impact there. I think coverage could use work, which again, for me at least, I think a lot of that comes down to the mental game, which not concerned about. True freshman last year. I don't expect him to be awesome there. Myles Graham, everything he did last year are green flag indicators that he's going to be a good linebacker this year, if not great linebacker this year, and then great linebacker next year, if not elite linebacker next year as he's entering year 3. So Myles Graham, someone that should break out in 2025. And we're going to flip to the defensive line to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators. It's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. And let's be honest, some days on the course or off of it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energizing. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape, ginger, lime flavor brings out the best parts of your game or the clubhouse go-to without chasing down the Bev card. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's the 5-Hour Energy. 5, number 5. HourEnergy.com. You can use our promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. The offer is only valid until September 30th on one order, cannot be used with other promotions, and the code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. Thanks for being Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day, every day. We are available daily and free, whether it's the podcast and on YouTube. And to wrap up today's show, we got one more guy we're talking about today. And it's former 5-star defensive lineman, LJ McCray. I think generally for him, actually, yeah, let's not say generally, but for him, I think year 2 is a good time to break out. I was someone who last year we talked about him and I said, hey, I think he'll play a rotational role, but like I don't have high expectations for him as a true freshman, just because he was one of the players that fits what Billy Napier has now openly said. Because we've talked about this for years now, but now he's been more open about it, where they're not recruiting great college football players. They're recruiting NFL draft picks. And LJ McCray is one of the more glaring signs of that, or one of the more notable signs of that, where year 1 for him, I expected him to rotate. I didn't expect him to be great. And I don't think he was. But again, year 1 wasn't the expectation. I think he performed about as expected. I thought he would play a little more, but when he played about what I expected as a true freshman. So not concerned with the play. But I will say that, and if you're part of the Locked On Gators Insider program, you got the scouting report of LJ McCray last year, or from last year. And some strong positives, right? As far as pass rush plan goes, has a bull rush that needs work, but it's in his toolbox. And I will say that part of it needing work, and also in the scouting report from last year, I wrote that I think he needs to mass up a little bit, gain a little bit of weight, gain a little bit of power, just because it didn't look like he was up to snuff with other SEC offensive tackles for a while. It looked just like he needed work. And again, I know people get defensive about things like that, but he was a true freshman in the SEC. I don't expect you to be great, right? And he's listed as like 5 pounds heavier, but looks physically different from last year. Like, he looks better. I wouldn't be shocked if he's one of the guys where it's like, yeah, he lost 12 pounds, gained 17 of muscle. Like, I wouldn't be shocked at all if that was, yeah, I just threw those numbers out there. But I wouldn't be shocked if that was the case with him, because he looks different. And so having the bull rush, good, but you need work and you need more power to be able to pull it off against SEC linemen. And based on his look, he should be more powerful, right? Based on this roster, how they look, he should be more powerful. Like, at this point, if you don't have the power to do things, I'm more inclined to believe it's either your genetics are killing you there, or you're not working hard enough at this point. Just because I look at the rest of this roster and I see that overall, Tyler Myles has helped a lot of them change their bodies and become physically stronger. Even if you lost weight, you look different. You look more muscular. And so I think that at this point, that's on you. And LJ looks like he bought into that process. He looks better than he did last year. He has a swim move that he would break out a little bit. I do think that he needed to use it more often last year, but it's a thing that's in the toolbox. And again, he didn't have a ton of opportunities last year. Like, he wasn't someone that was playing a ton. He played less than 200 snaps in the entire season, which he played the 22nd most snaps. Okay. And so he has a swim move that's in the box, but needs a lot of technical work. But again, my stance for young players, especially, is if you've got the if you've got the willingness and the instinct to go out there and do it, we can work on getting you better at it. But to be able to do it and willing to do it is at least a decent start there. One thing that LJ does that I have been very open about, I love when defensive linemen do it at any position on that defensive front. When you're engaged with the blocker and you're not winning, and you see the quarterback getting ready to throw it, jumping and getting your hands up in the air and into the passing lane, I love that. Like disrupting throwing windows is huge, because if they throw it, you can bat it, and on the very rare you jump and it like hits you in the chest, and then you can catch it on the way down. Very rare, but it happens. So you've got that where you can, again, even if you just bat the ball, force an incompletion, good. Okay. You can force a pump fake if he sees you going up and pulls back, and that gives another one of your teammates a little bit more time to go make a play themselves. Like getting hands into the throwing windows for a defensive lineman may not be appreciated by a lot of fans, but that's an NFL play. Okay. Like that's genuinely part of the NFL scouting report is when you're not winning your reps because you're not going to win every single rep. I don't care who you are. You're not going to win every rep. Getting your hands in the passing lanes when you aren't winning is a win. I mean, JJ Watt made, I feel one of the things that made him a headline name was not just, or household name, was not just that he was a great pass rusher in his prime, but it's that it'd be like, yeah, JJ Watt, by the way, had 20 sacks and 20 batted balls. Like JJ Watt was out there doing things like that, like NFL plays. It's as simple as that's an NFL thing to do, to get out there and disrupt throwing lanes and to honestly screw over offenses. That's the thing that you can do as a freshman and make big impact plays, ruin their days, which again is a fun thing to do. And so I think that for LJ McCray, his technique needed a ton of work. Now that having a year plus with this coaching staff, we could be seeing that coming to fruition. Pass rush plan needed work. Hand fighting needed work as far as deconstructing blocks and working and building and chaining things together. But we've heard about the boxing. And I know people talk about the boxing mentality. And I also think that a lot of it comes from, or a lot of that is going to be seen through how effectively and efficiently you use your hands. Precise movements. I think that's going to help there. We know strength and conditioning is on fire. So that answers that. If he just gets the technique down and develops a bit more of a pass rush plan, maybe adds another move or two to the toolbox, he's going to be a beast. And I don't know what his role is going to be fully this year, but I'm telling you now, this might be one of those guys where I'm like, yeah, he's going to break out and his role expands a little bit, but his film's going to get a lot better. I feel pretty solid about LJ McCray there. If he's putting in the work with this coaching staff, with the strength and conditioning program, should be able to be more of an impact player this year. I do think the run defense will show up. Pass rushing needs to be developed. It's a simple. His pass rush plan needs to be developed. We'll see how much that actually happens, but if he does that, he's going to be a beast. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever in the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Florida Gators football. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I'll see you all next time.